Well, let's talk now to Guney Yildiz. He's a visiting fellow at the European Council of Foreign Relations, where he specialises in Syria, Turkey and the Kurds. Thanks very much for coming in to Al Jazeera. Andrew Simmons confirming only in the last 20 minutes that we're now hearing that the Turkish offensive has gone into the city of Afrin. What are you hearing? What picture are you hearing from there?
I actually confirmed with sources inside Afrin that the conflict started. Turkish troops and Turkish-supported Syrian groups have been entering city from the Western Front, which is a Mahmoudiye neighborhood. We're actually entering into a particularly violent episode of an already bloody conflict, which saw tens of thousands of people being displaced, which most of them took shelter in the Afrin town itself, and they're now being displaced again. And they're taking a route towards the south. They don't want to go towards the Turkish captured areas, and but the regime also doesn't allow them to enter into regime areas. So we are actually facing a double human tragedy of civilians trapped inside the city, as well as civilians trying to flee from them.
The Turkish authorities are saying that their attacks are not hurting civilians, they're not killing civilians. They're also being quite clear, as Andrew was explaining in his report. They're saying that the actual picture of a bombed hospital is not. They showed pictures of a building that had not been bombed. What, again, are your sources saying inside of Afrin as to the picture, the civilian picture in there?
Well, the Syrian Observatory, which has like an extensive network of kind of informers, people on the ground, said the building which was hit, actually, it was a smaller building, which is blurred in Turkish Chief of Staff's pictures, which were aired just a minute ago. And that was the building, and the larger building, which remained unscathed, is a separate building. That's what they say. I haven't visited Afrin myself, but I visited other northern Syrian towns a few months ago.
And what does this do to US relations with Turkey? In the end, the US is the one that's been backing the Kurds, the YPG inside. That's the offensive that Turks are going against. How is that going to affect their relationship?
Well, Turkey is depending heavily, relying heavily on Russian approval to carry out this attack. And the broader geostrategic rivalry between Russia and US will be influenced by this. So Turkey cannot be so close to Russia and also balance its relations with the US. And also there's no action in Syria that will not, at the moment, that will not provoke multiple reactions from multiple actors, including allies. For example, Syrian regime is allied, obviously, with Russians, and Iran is also an ally of this group. But Syrian regime is less happy about Turkish offensive into Syrian territory than Russia. So there could be some kind of distance between the two as well. And also Iran can step in from a different angle. What is more worrying is that Syrian conflict had been, at the beginning, a proxy war between the bigger forces. Now it is like the forces themselves, the countries themselves, are on the ground, which makes the situation much more dangerous.
It's a multi-ethnic town, Afrin. Yazidis, Alawites, Arabs, all sorts of different ethnicities there. They've been, like many towns in that area, they've been through so many different changes of people, sort of the regime, the different rebel groups there. What does the future hold for these people that are still in Afrin?
You mean in Afrin? Afrin actually has been a traditionally Kurdish majority town, with Yazidis also ethnically Kurdish but religiously different, not non-Muslims. Some Alawites, there are Kurdish Alawites in Afrin too. But since the start of the conflict, Afrin actually spared the brunt of the war and received many refugees from Aleppo, from other places. So the population of Arabs actually increased in the town, who took shelter in this relatively peaceful area. Now they're being displaced again. And President Erdogan has been saying that Turkey wants to put Syrian refugees from elsewhere in Syria into this town. So we can see a huge demographic change in this area.
Guney Yildiz, thank you very much for joining us.